Okay. And there's quite a few people here who also haven't been to Nomas project, so I'm glad everyone can join us this afternoon. It's been a bit of a dull day today, and there's lots of nice bright colours going on as I look at the screen. That's nice and refreshing. My name's Cully. I'm an artist based in Dundee, and I'm one of the directors of a charity called Morphe Arts, and also one of the people behind Nomas projects with Owen that's there. Um, and I'm liking. I haven't seen Owen for maybe 10 days, so I'm liking or maybe 2 days. Owen, that's his beard growing in 2 days. And Owen also works on with a team on the Encyclopedia of Theology at St Andrews University, and obviously one of the people behind Nomas projects as well. For those that don't know, the Nomas space is 5 windows. It's based on Ward Road in Dundee, and it's situated between a nightclub called Church, which used to be an old church, and the Balcony Bar. So if you're looking for a cheap pint, that's the place to go. Balcony Bar, £2.80 all drinks. That's really cheap, actually, isn't it? Yeah. You just might never get out again. That's the only. Oh, I've said that. This is recorded. No, the balcony bar's great. Um, and the word nomas comes from the Greek nomad. It means roaming in search of pasture. And for Owen and I, we, obviously nice and pretentious, but it kind of resonated with our um, kind of notion as humans and as artists particularly who are always seeking inspiration, that idea of roaming in search of where the new inspiration and the ideas are going to come from. And our aim has always been just to investigate the role of art in society and to engage with ideas, to learn from the experiences of other people and the art that they make, and just to be part of a relevant conversation in the arts community in Dundee and then beyond as well. I'm just going to introduce you to our artist that we're working with, Jillian Lee Adamson. And I met Jillian at our degree show. She graduated from Edinburgh College of Art last June. And I was really taken by her presentation, the show, how it was presented. I was really impressed by that. And then Jillian was sitting there beside the show just outside, and we got chatting. And I was just really impressed by um, the thinking and the ideas behind the work. And I went away from the conversation. Heather, that's here as well. Is Heather gone? Oh, Heather's
No,
gone.
she's here.
Oh no, Heather's there. Sorry, still there. Had a chat with her on a different occasion, and the two of us were saying, what stood out to you? And both of us were talking about Jillian's work, and both had a conversation with her as well, and thought, yeah, this is really interesting. So I had Jillian in mind for an exhibition at Nomas at some point in the future, when we had space. And then we met again. So that was just in the back of my mind. I'm not sure I'd even communicated with Jillian at this stage, but we both had work in the SSA back in November at the RSA, and we were both de-installing at the same time. Our works was quite close, and so I got chatting, and we had an opening that had come up in January at Nomas, and that I was trying to fill, but it was at really short notice. So we had the chat, we had a conversation within the hour. We'd agreed that Jillian was going to show her work at Nomas, which was amazing. Not least because she's going to be part of the RSA New Contemporaries in April, just right after the show. So some of the work had to go, to be saved for that space as well. Jillian was born in Minneapolis, in Minnesota, but she's now based in East Lothian in Scotland. In her statement, she says that her journey has been as multifaceted as her work. A neurodivergent, mad identified, I'm glad you said that, Jillian. No, that's not me saying that. Mad identified, formerly homeless high school dropout. Jillian's life experiences have profoundly shaped her creative practice. And this artistic practice consists of making intricate embroideries centered around the meditative and tactile process of slow stitching, transforming needle and thread into metaphorical cells that are symbolic representations of resilience and recovery. The embroideries, delicate yet inherently strong, reflect her lived experiences and offer a space for processing trauma through mindfulness. Previously, Jillian had studied media arts at the Perpich Centre. I'm pronouncing that right?
Perpich.
Perfect.
Perpich.
Centre for Arts Education and Cinematography and Fine Art at Minneapolis College. And then in 2024, she graduated with a first class BA honours in painting, of course, in painting.
Of course, I'm painting.
Where there was not a spot of paint in sight. And as I say, she's going to be showing in April at the Royal Scottish Academy New Contemporaries. So today we're really looking forward. I got a wee sneak preview of Jillian's PowerPoint presentation, so you're in for a treat. And as we normally do, if everyone can just mute so that there's no background noise while she's speaking. If you have any questions, put them in the chat. And then after Jillian's spoken, we'll open up either to questions in the chat that come up, or if you want to open up your mic and ask a question, we'll do it that way. Timing wise, we'll be ready about 20 to 5 for questions. And then at 5 o'clock, I'm going to hand over to Owen, who will just let you know what's coming up with Nomas, and we'll be finished about 10 past 5. Just to let you know, that's our schedule for the day. So if we can even visually and audibly give Jillian a warm welcome. Thank you, Jillian. It's a silent one, Jillian. It's a silent one.
All right. Let me make sure I can share this properly. Are you all seeing the thing that says artist talk?
Yeah.
All right.
That's great.
Well, thank you for such an amazing introduction, Cully. You make me feel like I'm an artist with a capital A or something. First of all, thank you so much, everyone, for taking the time to be here today. And I feel like I should start by saying that this is the absolute first time that I've ever done anything like this. So please bear with me because I'm really nervous. And also, I'm getting over both the flu and the norovirus at the same time. Fun times. So I'm not necessarily at 100%, and I am still coughing a bit, but I'll do my best. All right, let's get started. If it'll let me forward. It won't let me advance the slide. There we go. My name is Jillian Lee Adamson. I used to say medium-wise that I'm a rather promiscuous artist, but since saying that can be misconstrued, I've begun to take the more professional tact and say that I'm an interdisciplinary artist living in East Lothian, Scotland. That said, you can probably tell by my accent that I'm not from around here. I was born in Minneapolis, Minnesota in the United States of America, and try as I might, I just can't seem to shake my Fargoian nasalated Midwestern accent. Oh yeah. Anyway, I lived in Minnesota until I was 34, when only after 33 months, met in real life my pen pal of 10 years, who had by then become my best friend, and then married him 3 months later, like you do. In 2012, I moved to where I was living at the time, just north of London, and then in the summer of 2014, during a trip to Edinburgh, so he could show me where he was from, someone smiled at me on the sidewalk, and I turned to him and said, "We're moving." For all I know, it could have been a tourist. I think we were on Coburn Street after all, but that had been it had been so long since a stranger had taken the millisecond it takes to smile at me that it almost made me cry. We moved to Scotland in 2015, and I don't think either of us have regretted it ever since. But that's not the point of the presentation, so I will, before I get ahead of myself, perhaps I should start with my current artist statement. Using single threads of 6-stranded embroidery floss, a 22.5 millimeter sewing needle, water-soluble fabric, and beeswax, I create textile works that resemble fantastical cellular structures made entirely of thread. These metaphorical cells are stretched across sewing needles that have been tapped into a wall. Stretching them in this manner creates a sense of tension, both literal and symbolic. As a neurodivergent, mad-identified, formerly homeless high school dropout, my work is a visual distillation of experiential knowledge gained whilst traversing a world not always designed with my success in mind. Through the rhythmic and tactile process of slow stitching, I use a needle and thread to create intricate and symbolic representations of my journey. The metaphorical cells I embroider symbolize resilience and adaptability, testament to the strength I have cultivated in order to contend with life's challenges. Cells are potent reminders of our ability to develop resistance and emerge stronger. The cell's protective membrane symbolizes safety and stability, and its ability to cleanse itself through autophagy signifies the paramount importance of self-care. Though not visually present in my current work, words are integral to my process. These hidden, silent verses are woven through everything that I make. Every stitch, a syllable, a word uttered beneath my breath, a testament to the power of self-expression. By allowing my thoughts to surface without judgment, slow stitching enables me to practice mindfulness and process past traumas in a gentle and non-threatening manner. My embroidery work's intricate and delicate nature belies its true strength, symbolizing the incredible resilience and inner strength within us all. A single thread is weak, but when that thread is woven around itself, when it is tied and pulled, knotted and twisted, it becomes nearly indestructible, whilst maintaining an appearance of fragility. My origin story is one of upheaval. As an adolescent, I faced uncertainty and I learned to trust others for survival, often without discernment. My sisters and I lived a life being yo-yoed between apparent plenty and poverty, parental neglect, and exposure to addicts going through every stage of their recovery in our family home. Despite the challenges, my childhood formed a foundation that informs my art, and I strongly believe that who I am today is because of how I grew up. I don't know if I would like the person who I would have become if I'd never experienced what I did. It also has the added benefit of providing for the occasional interesting story. One of the earliest memories I have of working with thread is learning counted cross-stitch from my mother. Despite our chaotic home life, she did manage to teach me this skill as a way to create something beautiful amidst the turmoil. This early interaction with thread has become a recurring theme in my life, often serving as a source of comfort and creativity. I've always found solace in thread. During my first bout of agoraphobia in 2003, I taught myself to knit. And a few years later, during my bouts of homelessness, I would knit hats in exchange for meals and occasionally drinks. This reliance on thread as a means of survival has evolved into my current practice. My work requires a few simple yet crucial materials: thread, needle, beeswax, embroidery hoop, water-soluble film, small embroidery scissors, DIY thimble pads that I make out of scrap leather and double-sided sticky tape, and a pincushion. The materials I use are essential to my practice. The sewing needle, for instance, is not just a tool, but a symbol of subversion. Historically associated with women in the home, the needle has been both a means of education into traditional femininity and a weapon of resistance against constraints. The importance of these materials lies not just in their functionality, but in their ability to transform the ordinary into something new and meaningful. Interestingly, no matter what medium I think I want to work in, for instance, my degree is in painting, I always do seem to go back to thread. Sometimes I joke that I'm a bit of a thread recidivist, but I think that's my addiction to Innocence podcast coming out. Anyhow, the words text and textile share a common ancestor. The Latin textere, to weave, the connection between language and cloth is not coincidental. They are intimately related. Every stitch I make, a syllable, as I said, a word uttered beneath my breath. And also, as a side note, if you want to learn more about the sewing needle as a weapon of resistance, check out Rosika Parker's The Subversive Stitch. You won't regret it. Sloppy craft. I like to think of my work as a part of the sloppy craft movement, embracing the imperfections and personal narratives that thread allows me to convey. When thinking about sloppy craft, it is the subversive power of the needle that most interests me. The subversive nature of sloppy craft, particularly its ability to challenge traditional notions of fine art, as well as that of contemporary craft, by undermining a major craft tenet, skill, is one of the things that makes sloppy craft so powerful. In the context of sloppy craft, I am trying to elevate the concept over technical skill, using everyday objects like needles to challenge traditional notions of craft, and objecting to the hierarchy that places fine art above craft. So, although skill is still a requirement to be successful at pulling it off, sloppy craft is about elevating concept over technical skill. It is about subversion. It is about choosing mediums traditionally associated or relegated, if you will, to craft as a deliberate and expressive choice. And just as a side note, the next time you go to the library, check it out. Even our libraries are organized in this hierarchy. Fine art is nowhere near craft on the shelves. First, I'd like to show you this, for how sloppy craft and my work are related. First, I'd like to show you the first cell that I finished, which also happens to be the one on the poster, Metaphorical cell number 12, Craving Kumquats. This piece, which is under 6 inches in diameter, took me nearly a month to produce because I had never done anything like this before and I was making it up as I went. Nearly every edge is reinforced with wrapped thread because I was afraid it would fall apart. It is tight, it is compact, and it shows a lot of anxiety. I learned a lot while making this piece. It's definitely not going to come apart. Secondly, by comparison, let's look at metaphorical cell number 10, the etymology of a falling autumn. This cell represents my journey from tight, very possibly more anxious stitches to using looser and more expressive ones. That said, if we zoom in, you can see that the anxious little reinforcements are still aplenty. I don't, old habits die hard, but they're surrounded by more experimental movement. For me, it symbolizes growth and exploration of learning to work on letting things go and being more mindful. Anyway, this is the first piece that really reflects how metaphorical cells have become a space for me to process trauma. When viewers engage with my work, I hope that they see not just intricate embroideries, but also reflections of their own resilience. I aim with my work to prompt a dialogue and connection, inviting viewers to reflect on their own inner strength. And then let's compare the two of them with one of my more recent pieces that I finished in November, Metaphorical Cell number 12, Pippa, the Destroyer of Monsters. I think this one does a pretty decent job of sharing both looseness and some of my bound up anxiety. I'll just let you look at it. Come up with your own thoughts for that. Did it work? And then I should say that I didn't just suddenly make these. It took me a long time to finally come up with the idea that I did for the metaphorical cells. I was trying to do something entirely different. Spent a lot of time experimenting, and often most of that time was spent floundering. It would be remiss of me not to mention just how important words are to me. As I said previously, text and textile being related is just a happy coincidence, but they're very important. I'm an avid reader. I read 167 books in 2024, and I've read 19 so far this year. But it goes well beyond reading. I also write a lot, and sometimes what I write, I turn into poetry. I won't show this to you just now, but I turned the poem on the previous slide into a short film that I'll be showing at the RSA next month for New Contemporaries. Sometimes I make videos of archive footage that I've amassed over the last 30 years. Everything in the video was shot by me with VHS, Super 8 camera in the early 80s and 90s, and then with various mobile phones beginning in about 2005. I have a habit of writing my thoughts down on bits of paper I leave around the house, and occasionally flattened toilet paper rolls. Most of the time, these notes are just me jotting down memories that suddenly come to mind. Sometimes I talk about how I'm feeling at the moment, and occasionally the things I write are humorous, or I don't know, I think they are. During lockdown, I began to embroider my non sequitur thoughts a bit. You can see where I don't really know what I'm doing. There's lots of hesitancy, and it doesn't, it's just writing on fabric. It wasn't too long before I segued into trying my hand at quilting. But even so, words were still something I was trying to add to my work. So you can see in the back on the wall, I was using a freehand motion embroidery machine and trying to put a journal entry on a quilt. That's currently what it still looks like because it was difficult. And here are some more of my forays into quilting. On the top left is my first entirely hand-stitched quilt. And the one in the bottom left it's like 7 feet long, and it's ugly and overwhelming, and I just stopped. And so another floundering. Then I was also working on making little dioramas and things like that. And this is a book that I made for my daughter out of 2 hollowed out Reader's Digests, and everything in it, except for the little tiny jar that's holding up the Zumjiaojiaos, which are dead echinacea, that is all made by me. And turned out all right. Clearly an amateur event or a thing, but yeah. And one of my favorite things to do is making dolls. In the field adaptation of Michael Chabon's Wonder Boys, a university professor and a writer played by Michael Douglas and his literary agent played by Robert Downey Jr. and his star student also happens to be passed out, played by Tobey Maguire, are sitting in a bar spying a unique individual across the room. Douglas and Downey Jr. proceed to concoct an elaborate story about who the man is.
Oh my goodness, do you see what I see? Right there. Let's go. You first.
President of the James Brown Hair Club for Men. He's a boxer, a flyweight.
No. He's a jockey. His name is Curtis. Curtis Hardapple.
Not Curtis.
Okay, well, Vernon. Vernon Hardapple. The scars are from a horse. He fell during a race. He got trampled.
He's addicted to painkillers.
Yeah, he can't even piss standing up anymore.
Lives with his mother.
That's right. He's got a younger brother who's a
Groom named Claudel,
Yeah.
and his mother blames Vernon for Claudel's death.
right. because
Because
That's why, right? He's responsible for Claudel's death because, all right.
He was killed when a gangster named Freddie Nostrils tried to shoot his favorite horse. Claudel took the bullet himself. Vernon, over there, was in on the hit.
So yeah, although making up stories about strangers isn't a new idea by any stretch of the imagination, I started doing it years ago when I began taking the bus. But that scene is just so well done that I think about it on a pretty regular basis. This is especially true when making my dolls. As soon as their faces begin to take shape, I begin to think of detailed backstories for them, like Mildred. Mildred gets pretty salty if you interrupt her daytime programming, and her memory isn't quite what it once was. A bit of a spitfire when she was younger, her favorite topics of conversation have been known to make sailors blush. Consider yourself forewarned. And there's Francois, a widower who lives in the same care home as Mildred. Francois spends over an hour waxing his mustache every day. He spends the rest of his time doing the New York Times crossword puzzle, feeding sunflower seeds to birds on sunny days, and generally trying to avoid Mildred. But after that, still floundering, I decided I would try to do something to be a bit more intentional, an effort to be less miserable, more observant, and more intentional in my actions. I decided to become less closed off and more present and began to consciously look at the world around me. However, since agoraphobia is a bit of a difficult hurdle to overcome, first needed to do a bit of internal gaslighting and essentially fake my brain out. So I took to the internet initially to look for even closer things to look at. Creature of habit that I am, I began by looking at old books that I could find online. And then I found a treasure trove, an absolute slew of better images at Nikon's Small World website, which is amazing. You should check it out. I mean, just look at these. They're just, wow. I mean, the one on the bottom left is asparagus and that slime mold. They're all just so cool. That one on the bottom left is crystallized syrup, or sugar syrup. Excuse me. Micrographs of cells are fascinating. They're intricate and beautiful, and they have the added bonus of being the very essence of life. After all, to be alive, you must have cells. And if you have cells, you must be a living thing. When I began making my thread pieces, I tried to be as precise as possible. Even though I was making it up as I went, I was careful and methodical because I wanted to learn how to do stitches properly. My work was tight and highly wound, and I think it was probably also a reflection of how I was feeling at the time. I was wearing my magnifying glasses so much when I was making them that it caused me to develop blisters where my regular glasses rested on the ridge of my nose. I began wearing little bits of cloth beneath my glasses, which helped a bit, but it didn't fix the problem altogether. These days, rather than the magnifying glasses, I wear a camping headlamp and a pair of old glasses that I've turned into upside-down half-moon spectacles by cutting the bottoms off, and that because I can still see close with my glasses off, so that I can see in the distance but still do close work. I look a bit odd, but they do the job. One of the things that I had to do with this work is figure out how I was going to display it because they're floppy and strange. And I knew it was going to be a challenge. I mean, after all, how does one display something so floppy and intricate? I knew I wanted to have them off the wall, but other than nails, which are not the most aesthetic of objects, I couldn't think of what might work. Initially, I contemplated using thin acrylic dowels and filing a small little indentation at the ends to keep the work in place, but I realized that was going to be entirely way too unwieldy before even attempting it. But oh, serendipitous happenstance, thy name is sewing needles. Finally, just mere days before the last exhibition of my final year at ECA, before the degree show, and after a very frustrating and futile trip to the hardware store, I discovered a solution when picking up some more embroidery needles. Sewing needles. I was like, duh. Not only are they thin, they're tempered, and as it turns out, they can come in some very ridiculously long lengths. And what an appropriate solution as well. So although the initial installation process is painstaking and laborious, and it can take many hours, I actually enjoy the work. It speaks to the time and care that went into the making, and so it just makes sense to me to take my time with how it's displayed. Although I do enjoy the process, it's not practical to need to do this every single time the work is installed. So I needed to come up with a way to not only speed it up, but make it possible for someone else to install it when I'm not available. As such, and it took me about a week of just sitting and staring, I came up with the idea of a template, and it worked. When doing the first install, I place a piece of paper onto a piece of wood large enough to hold the work when it's under tension. And then from there, I begin the painstaking process of sewing a piece of the edge of the work onto a sewing needle, drilling a 1 millimeter hole into the paper, through the paper and the wood with my Dremel, and then gently tapping it into place. I then choose another piece of the edge and repeat the process. I often need to move needles I've already drilled holes for to create the proper tension, which is why it takes so long. But given the organic nature of each piece, there's really no other way to do it, or at least there isn't one that I've come up with yet. After the template is finished, each sewing needle is tagged and numbered, and a small daub of gold paint is placed on the needle number 1. So I'll know which one was number 1, and then I put a little bit of a black mark on needle number 2, so I know what order it's in. Sometimes I can't tell the back from the front sometimes when de-installing it, and just in case the label disappears. The initial install time of 9 hours for my piece that's nearly a meter wide, and even the small ones can take about 2 hours. So cutting that down to about 15 minutes per piece with a template is pretty fantastic as far as I'm concerned. But anyhow, despite nothing positive feedback, something I'm absolutely not accustomed to, I knew I needed to push beyond the technical, to loosen up and to allow myself to explore the medium more freely, to discover how expressive I can be with just a needle and thread. I wanted to play a little and perhaps be a little unruly. I wanted to color outside the lines, if you will. When I started working larger, I began moving beyond the boundaries of my comfort zone. I'm now working looser and more freely. Through slow stitching, a form of needlework that focuses on mindful stitching rather than the finished object, my needle weaves intricate and symbolic representations of my journey. The metaphorical cells I embroider symbolize resilience and adaptability, reflecting the strength and tenacity required to overcome life's challenges. Although working more loosely speeds up the process, working bigger inevitably takes much more time than the smaller pieces. It gives me more time to contemplate things as I work, to think about things, and maybe heal a little. As cliche as it may sound, I think I'm trying to see if I can be the strong woman I think I would have become if a series of misfortunes hadn't broken my heart. I want to find the beauty in mundane. I want to find worth in what I do and who I am. I want to prove to myself that even though my resilience grew threadbare after years of unrelenting instability, poverty, and trauma, that I'm somehow still here, and that day by day, I'm starting to get better. Any questions?
Yay. Thank you, Jillian. Thank you, Jillian, so much.
Thank you.
It just feels I feel kind of overwhelmed with joy, actually. And yeah, just thanks so much for sharing so open as well, your story. I love how art has been, I think we know this deep down, that art can help us to process in that way. And yeah, I'm really pleased that it's been a source of help for you as well. That's really special. Yeah, I remember when I spoke to you, when you brought up the question of craft and kind of fine art concept as well, and how those are often. I think I'm maybe quite well. I think I'm less like this now actually because I'm aware of the value of different ways of making and thinking. But I know I definitely appreciate a concept and a craft as well. So one of the things after seeing your work and then talking to you, was okay, these look really beautiful, they're really well made, but I'm actually really interested in what's going on behind it. And that then is, for me personally, is what I'm intrigued by, so I can appreciate the craft and skill, but I'm also interested in both. And the way you combine that, I think is really good, so I could see, was that when you were, the way you spoke about it, it sounded like you looked into maybe that for your dissertation, or
I did sloppy craft. I did write about for my dissertation. Yeah.
yeah. You seem to know, that you had a kind of depth of knowledge on that. But yeah,
something I was interested in.
Yeah, yeah. It's interesting, even called sloppy craft, because even if I just heard that on its own, I wouldn't necessarily take that. I wouldn't necessarily take that as a serious thing just because of the use of the word sloppy, and I find that really interesting in terms of how words can have an impression on us or make us think something. Yeah, so I find that really fascinating because actually sloppy craft is very kind of academically sound and challenging. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just like what are they, post interdisciplinary world or something like that. It's you can really get into the weeds with it and spend a lot of time looking up what the words mean while you're reading it.
Yeah. Well, I think I've kind of given enough talk there for people to have a bit of a question for there's none in is there? Let me see any in the chat. No, I'm not seeing any questions in the chat. So if anyone wants to open up the mic and ask Jillian a question, feel free.
I have a question.
Alice?
Would you say that, and I've known Jillian personally somewhat for
30 years?
30 years.
Something? Yeah.
Yeah. We're really old now. Would you say that this
When
has
you
a
were
lot
both
to
one,
do with...
you met, did you?
What's that?
You met when you were both one, did you?
No, not 30. Probably more like 25.
No.
25? 2001.
I'm a little older than you are, Jillian. Yeah.
25 years.
2001 was when I moved to Minneapolis.
So yeah, it would have been so 24 years. Yeah.
Yeah. I know some of your family, and occasionally I even see them, which is amazing. And this looks very much to me like an expression of family. Would you say that that's true?
Most of them are, yeah. My largest piece is called Filling a February-Sized Hole, which is about my daughter. Her name is February. So it's about how much I miss her.
She's doing great.
Yeah. And then also they're all titled about things that I've done. Like my most recent one is called Cambodian Cough Syrup, because I got sick on my way to Cambodia, and when I've been sick on my way back, stuff like that. Number 12 that I showed you is Pippa, Destroyer of Monsters. I made that when I was staying with my friend Jeff, and his dog does this thing that like he goes like, and it's like a little Yorkie, and so she's like gonna annihilate the monsters. It's just cute. And then I've got one something along the lines. It was supposed to be called House Guest from Hell, but I thought it was too on point. I had a friend who stayed with us for 7 weeks and just never left. And I think now it's like something along the lines of always know when they're going to leave before they arrive, I think is what I've changed it to. But yeah, most of them are related to family. The very colorful one is for my friend Colby. I always joke with him that his favorite color palette is from the 90s. And it's called The 90s Called. It wants its palette back. Yeah.
Any other questions?
Can I ask a question?
Of course.
Mm-hmm.
Excellent. Hey, Jillian, how are you doing?
I'm all right.
Question. Don't worry. Well done. It's a very good presentation. I was really moved by like the talk of in the most recent work, and the thread work before that, how at first you did the stitches so small and tight, and that was very indicative of anxiety. And then some of it started to loosen out. But looking at it now, and like, correct me if I'm wrong, but it feels like the anxiety is being woven in to like structural walls around the trauma. And that's a good thing, you know? Like it's being absorbed into protection rather than something that's working against you. Does that make any sense to you, or is it
does.
something different?
It does. And I don't know that I was doing it intentionally, but when you think about the cell and its ability to heal itself, I think having that tension around it is a way when creating it, like the scar, and then you put looseness around it. It's like a protective membrane kind of thing, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
I don't know.
Yeah,
But yeah.
Sounds good. Thanks.
Thanks, Corinne. A question from Uli. I see your hand, Paula. Uli's asking, do you work full time as an artist?
At the moment, yes, because I'm allowed to. My husband is very kindly allowing me to ride this wave while I can. But if I can't sell anything, then I'm going to have to look for a real job. But yes, at the moment, I basically work every day, about 10 hours a day, stitching. It's actually been detrimental to my health. I have to be a bit more regimented about exercise. But yeah, at the moment, I work full time as an artist. And hopefully I can make money doing that soon.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks, Jillian.
There's a question there from Heather in the chat, but I'll come to you first, Paula. And I see your hand, Amanda, as well.
Yeah, I don't have a question. I just wanted to say how much I enjoyed the talk and how much I liked hearing the story and the journey behind your work, but just how much, despite how it's a healing process, how much it made me smile. It's just so enjoyable. I also loved when you showed the image of Pippa, the monster destroyer, whatever it's called. I loved seeing underneath it, and then the scale disappeared. It could have been enormous. It could have been a big top at a circus. I really like that, playing about with not knowing, the scale of things until you see it in a different perspective. But one of the other things I enjoyed hearing you saying was making that link between the word text and textile. Because someone once told me that there are more words in the English language that derive from textile and weaving than any other industry. And I don't know if that's true or not, but I like to think it is.
I believe it is true. There's two really good books I can post in the chat or something. There's one called The Golden Thread, and then another one, I have them in my notes. But I'll send them to Cully and put them in the chat afterwards. But they're both really they're layman reads as well, so they're easy to read. They're not like you're not going to getting into the weeds and wish that you hadn't picked this book up. You can read it on a holiday. But they're very good, and one of them mentions that actually, and so I think it's The Golden Thread that does.
Yeah, I forgot that you've read 19 books already this year, and I presume they're not like Ladybird books, are they?
No, but to be fair, because of my dyslexia, I listen to books a lot. Okay, so
yeah, that's amazing though as well. Would you do that then while you're working? Would you listen to while you're working? Yeah. One of the things I was thinking, like just almost to try and understand, like I know someone who's a painter, and if they've got, if they're struggling with anxiety or other things going on in the mind, once they're painting, there's that level of concentration required that means that your mind is now concentrating on that and not on whatever else. And even although what's coming out is, in your case, it seems like the anxiety, but I presume at the time that you're not feeling that, even though that's what's going into it, but you're not sitting there anxious, are you? Or is
most of the time I'm not. Sometimes I am.
Yeah.
if you look, if someone were to look at my back catalog of what I've read, I reread things a lot. So if I'm particularly anxious, I can listen to a book and completely disassociate for 3 chapters, come back in and go, oh, that's going on. And I'll know what I missed and keep going. So sometimes the anxiety is there, even if it isn't overtly on the surface. But sometimes I use books to escape. There was a quote in a book by Ruth Ozeki called My Year of Meats, where she says something along the lines of, I read my People magazine from cover to cover. That was the point. I didn't have to think. You know, it's a way to like escape. Like, because if you can avoid thinking about your thoughts, then maybe you can not have to have it so overtly in front all the time. And I think there is a lot of processing that happens without needing to constantly be thinking about it. You know, like I think it makes me more anxious if I think about my problems.
Yeah.
I'd rather be able to, I know they're there. I'm working on them. They can kind of do their thing in the background. And sometimes I can get insight from the characters in the books that I'm reading. Although I did go through a true crime phase, and that's worrisome. Yeah.
Yeah. I kind of see them, I don't know if this, like when I think of abstract expressionism, where someone will make a mark and then they'll stand back and they'll think, well, it just needs a wee bit extra there, or, you know, and they're just reacting and responding, you know, conversationally with the piece in front of them. And I get, well, I don't know, but would it be something like that, where you're, like, you don't know what you start and you don't really know where you're going to go. I mean, you could choose your colors, I suppose. But in terms of what it's going to look like, are you reacting and responding all along the way? Or
I'm reacting and responding to the material. Every now and then I do have a pen and I'll give myself squiggles or something. Or if I work on the bus a lot as well, and I will give myself lines to follow when I'm on the bus, just because that way when it's bouncing, I can actually hit a line places that I want to go. But for the most part, it's just freehand, and I just go where I want to go as I'm going, stuff like that.
Yeah, I was thinking actually that's right. It's it could be mapped out on the dissolvable paper, couldn't it? But that's not.
You could, yeah.
Is that
you can.
But yeah, that's not the way you work. But
no, well, I'll go grab one. Second, I've got one that's got some marks on it. Let's see. Somewhere. Oh, it's on the other side of the room. I grabbed the wrong one. 1 second. All right. So I don't know if people can see. So I've given myself some squiggles.
Yes.
You can kind of see there's some squiggles there. But it's mostly just, I know I need some smaller pieces for the RSA exhibition. And so I've got circles. So I know I don't want to go much bigger than that. And then I've got some lines. And half the time I don't follow that. It's just so I can't, when you mentioned abstract expressionism, that's one of my favorite movements. I think I dated a guy for 2 years because his father was an Abex painter and was a professor of painting. I think I dated him because I liked hanging out with his dad. But I am very much mark making and going with it kind of thing. I can't handle a clean canvas. I hate it. I mess the canvas up before I'll paint on it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm going to come to Amanda's question just after Heather. So Heather's made a comment here. She says, liking your dolls and characters, I think you'd enjoy an Insta channel, Mr. Horace Papers, an artist which makes simple dolls and makes up witty, hilarious stories around them. So I don't know if you want to look at that. That was a comment from Heather. And then she's just asking a question. She met you at the end of year show as well. And
I remember.
The photos of the cells reminded me of the Millefiore. Am I saying that right, Heather? Don't know.
I think it's Millefiore. It's Italian.
Sorry, just excuse my ignorance there. The glass made in Venice. Are you aware of that?
I think, did you mention that during the degree show as well?
It's just so similar. It's where they take glass rods of different colours, place them all together, and then they slice through.
Yeah,
I totally
if you didn't
see your energy. Yeah.
Yeah, if it wasn't you, it was someone else definitely mentioned that, and I kept forgetting what it was, and so I didn't get a chance to look it up. But now I will remember it because I connected. Thank you.
Amanda.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Hi, Jillian. I just want to say I'm so grateful that you've shared the episode of the floundering, and that really encouraged me. And I'm really interested in thread and the language of thread and how it kind of expresses an essence of mending, which is kind of linked to healing. And I'm just wondering whether you process that a fair bit in the action of seeing it as like mending in that process.
I think I do. At first, I didn't realize it. It kind of hit me upside the head about 3 or 4 in that's what I was doing.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I think definitely.
And the other thing, have you done much research into how memories can hold, cells can hold memory in going from one generation to the next? It's something that I'm interested in as well.
Absolutely. Definitely. Like the idea that high cortisol levels can change one's genetic makeup. And especially with women, their eggs can then pass that. It happens with men as well, but because women's eggs stay in their bodies forever, that high cortisol level can then cause genetic changes in their offspring. And there have been some really interesting studies with following survivors of the Holocaust. And I think like it was starting with the actual survivors, and they're down now with the great grandchildren, and they're starting to see some healing genetically, but it's taken 3 to 4 generations. Yeah, no, I'm very interested in epigenetic trauma. Sorry.
Yeah, I think it might have been a similar radio program, and her grandparents had fled from the Nazis to the States, but she hadn't known. And she couldn't understand why she always felt a sense of having to hurriedly leave a place, leave a home. And then it all came about. It was because, of her ancestors, her grandparents. And I think the conversation you had with Cully's probably answered my question about sometimes do you pre-plan compositionally, but you were saying you start with a doodle. But I'm guessing you may well journal and reflect back on your journaling from, backstories or past memories, positive or negative, some that have humor, some that are tied in with your trauma. Do you have a particular backstory and memory that you maybe think, okay, this is going to be my starting point? And then you let that whole creative process evolve as you're letting the making lead? Or do you, or is it the other way around? Sometimes you might create something and think, no, this is what is linked to that backstory or that memory.
I think it's the second one. I don't know about you, but for me, if I say this is what I'm going to have for dinner for the rest of the week, I don't want to eat any of that food. And so I think if I started off saying this is what I'm going to think about while I'm making this piece, I'm going to heal that way. I don't think I do it. I'm not very good at keeping myself on track ever. So it's more looking back at what I was processing and what I was going through and what I was thinking about while I was working on each piece, more so than everything else. That's like the first giant one that I made. I hadn't spoken to my daughter. My daughter is, she's 29. So we had a year of 5 years where she wasn't speaking to me. And so it just kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And I realized that that's what it was about after the fact. So, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Thanks, Amanda. Jane.
Yeah, Jillian, thank you for your what you've said. I really like how you speak about sewing, from what I hear, is sort of mapping your journey, which is I'm really into sort of the process of mapping wholeness and through our work. So it's really interesting. Also, the needle, I wrote down needle as a weapon against constraint, which I think is fantastic. I've been teaching for a number of years, been teaching women in really difficult situations to sew so that they have a marketable skill. And so they're earning from that. And so, but to actually see, but I haven't really seen that, the needle, as sort of a tool of empowerment and a tool of sort of reconstructing identity after it's sort of been fairly bashed out of a person. So I really appreciate you saying that, because that's really concrete. That's fantastic. Also, sort of the textile and the text being so connected. Wow. That's just fabulous. I think that whole text and textile, you spoke about it, and then I was, you know how you get stuck on a sentence and then you've sort of lost a bit about it. Can you just say a bit more about the sort of the text and the textile and how, because I just think that's amazing how the work speaks like text, like reading a book or something. And yeah, but the amazing thing is that when it's a piece, it's not just saying that one thing, that's just saying that one thing, but actually it can be read in so many different ways, can't it? So just the idea of textile and text. Yeah, I don't know if you could say a bit more about that.
I think for me, with my pieces, the text and the textile, the titles, you sort of have to know me a bit to understand them. And I'm hoping with my titles to give people a prompt to think about things in their own situations, because one of the things that I do struggle with is oversharing quite a lot. And I've had to learn to sort of obfuscate that a bit. So I try to give titles that will send a prompt to the person, the actual viewer, without, I don't want people to look at my work and have it be a trauma dump that they have to then take on themselves. I do want to make people feel things, though. Like the film that I am going to be showing at the RSA is, what I did with that is I took journal entries and I put it into as a word scrambler, and then made a poem out of it. And every time I watch people watch that film, they start crying, even though I've seen 3 or 4 people start crying, even though it doesn't, none of the sentences are regular sentences. None of it means much. The images over it, but for some reason it instills some kind of emotion that overwhelms people. And I guess with my textile pieces, I'm hoping I can do something similar with that, but a little less traumatic, maybe. I don't want to make people cry all the time.
Yeah.
I think I see that book on my bookshelf, and I could probably just go grab it.
Yeah, do that if you can see it. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I see it where it is. I think. Oh, that's not the right one. No.
Jillian, once I'm just going to hand over to Owen shortly, and that might give you time to get the name of it and put it in the chat.
No, it wasn't the right book.
No.
But I do have them in my Audible as well, so I will find it in my phone. I'll let Owen I'll let you close up, and I'll find it and send it before.
Owen, you might want to ask your question there, because I know you made a comment, and Alice made a comment as well, so you can see them in the chat, Jillian, and then Owen's question as well. I'm just trying to keep us on time, really, but because it feels like we could just keep chatting, and there's very lots of interesting things to be discussing here. Let me just see what Uli said there, if it's a question. Yeah, no, just a comment. So an encouraging comment for you, Jillian. Yeah, Marlene. I'll just unmute you, Marlene. Marlene, can you see the be like a nut? Yeah,
can you hear me now?
Yes.
All right. Yes, I kept till the last moment. Sorry. Yes, I did have a very specific question to before we started, but it's now irrelevant because the whole process, the mental process, intellectual process, is so complicated that, as I said, my question is now irrelevant. But what I was going to ask is, could Jillian show by example, have the piece there and say, that is, I was thinking like this, I was preparing like this, and maybe I did have a story or something specific. And then I started with this stitch, and here I had one cell, but just something like this. But I know now, it's just you cannot do this. So I just wanted to say how fascinating this mental process is, and yeah.
That's encouraging. That's the question coming into that has been, even in the discussion and the way Jillian has described her work has answered that for you. That's encouraging. Owen, I'm going to hand over to you. There's a few people here who haven't been to a Nomas talk before, and we do have a mailing list. So if you want to put your name in the chat, or even write it to me personally if you don't want everyone else to see your email address, and I can add you to the mailing list, so that just while Owen's chatting, you got time to do that as well. Thanks, Owen.
Thank you. Thanks, Cully. Thank you, especially Jillian, and a massive thank you for everybody who's been here today. We really, really appreciate you joining us at Nomas. And it's just a rich feast, like Cully was saying, we kind of do it searching and roaming in search of pasture. And today was just really resonant on so many levels. So just a massive thank you, Jillian. And if that's you post-flu, post-norovirus, I congratulate you, because that's immense what you've done today.
Thank you.
And for the guys who are not in Dundee, I just wanted to kind of show you the work as it's installed. And of course, we have this window-only gallery, and it's just stunning. It's just quietly immersive, when you go past, and it just catches people, I think, watching folk going by, and then just sort of taking a second glance at it, going back and witnessing it. And the level of care and detail is just extraordinary. It's a kind of slightly closer view for folks. And yeah, just how long did you say exactly, Jillian, how long you reckon some of the pieces have taken you?
I actually have a spreadsheet. And like I'll open it up because it's pretty crazy when I looked at it, how long it ended up being. But I think the ones that are about 7 inches take over 30 hours of time now.
Yeah.
Like I was going to say the biggest one, I had to extrapolate from that, and it was like over 100 days of stitching. Wow. And that's like real time, actual stitching time.
Yeah.
From the extrapolate, it's a lot, and it's hence the detrimental to my health issues.
So the extraordinary thing for me is there's like a kind of transformation of life energy. It's like you're kind of it's coming out of you into like these cells that exist in their own right as an artistic
absolutely
entity.
I mean, it's literally like all I do.
Yeah. And it's kind of that kind of whole creative embodiment is kind of very physically present there in the work. And if I kind of keep losing my threads when I look at the work. I get lost in my thoughts.
I keep losing my threads.
I found my spreadsheet. Let's see, so there's a couple there that I was. So the one on the left hand side there, that one, that's number 9. That took me fully 3 days, 20 hours, and 26 minutes. The biggest one that I've made took it was 46 days, 13 hours, and 26 minutes of like nonstop stitching. That so I obviously over several months, but yeah,
it's exquisite. It's just such beautiful, beautiful work.
Thank you.
And I just really resonated with what you were saying about the kind of survival, resistance, and the human capacity to heal. I think we all really connected to that today. And I think for myself, like, I used to feel guilty about the fact that the art was there to try and kind of ground me. It kind of helped me to make sense of my own experience, to externalize a lot of stuff, kind of therapeutic, cathartic. And of course, I look at the cells, and you're physically and emotionally doing that through these reproduction of cells on the in the gallery themselves. And last time when we had a talk, I remember using this quote about this. It was more externally facing, that art was not about itself, but the attention that we bring to it. And then listening to you today, it's kind of been inverted, like it's not about itself in a way, it's about the attention that you're bringing to it in this kind of creative, nurturing way. Duchamp was doing it to subvert the kind of expectations of the kind of art world at the time. But there's the whole kind of interiority of what you're doing really struck me. And then I was this quote by Thomas Merton, the kind of Trappist monk, in his book No Man is an Island. It really struck me. Art enables us to find ourselves and lose ourselves at the same time, and it's like when you were sharing your personal story today, I was very conscious that you're using this to sort of both lose yourself and find yourself. And that was, suppose, what I was thinking about the question I had for you. How has it changed yourself now that you've put that work physically out there for people to respond to? And I loved what Merton was saying in terms of it takes us to a place, whether it's poetry or painting or music, it takes us to a place that we didn't even know we were going to be able to achieve, and he's writing as a monk with this kind of very extreme kind of meditative quality. And then I got thinking about, poetry again, and King David and the Psalms, and that text and textuality. Of course, he's a poet, but he was writing, and there's a theme of thread I'd never thought of before. You created my inmost being. You knit me together in my mother's womb. And he's reflecting on God's kind of care and providence in difficult situations in life and being knit together. And that kind of attention that you bring in the needlework is kind of reflected in the care that he felt from God in his life. And it just, that whole knitting analogy is such a long-standing one, I guess. So we are immensely grateful to you for what you've shared today. And then we've got a few other shows, and that kind of attentiveness is reflected in Say's work. So he is in our 5-poster project just opposite Dundee railway station, if anybody's in the town centre. And it's Angels of the Invisible Front. And he has gone over to Ukraine in order to observe those people that are living in this kind of most contested area, and is doing it with child voice, and is trying to reflect on the restoring the hope in lives of young folk that are traumatized by the war and by exploitation. And so the photos are very, very gentle, but they're all kind of within this wider narrative that's extremely, as you can imagine, the most traumatic thing possible. And so please, if you're in the town centre, have a look at the posters, or if you're online, have a look at Wild Iris Media, or visit Cito Photography on Instagram. And he's a documentary photographer and filmmaker, and we're very privileged that he has been sharing with us at Nomas as well. And here's a kind of wider view, with Cully's nice shadow in there and a street sign pointing to Cully, as you can see. And And then also at Sharing Not Hoarding, we were privileged to be partnering with Dundee Print Collective. They've been on the go for 10 years now. And we were able to show edition 5. So it's a 10th anniversary project. And we've got 48 artists, including Cully, and a few alumni, or a couple of alumni from Nomas. And they had a very open brief, 2 colour layers and 1 black. But we've got a really nice, diverse show. And so if you're on the Ember bus heading from Dundee down to Edinburgh or back, you will get a free gallery experience out of your window through Sharing Not Hoarding, or visit sharingnothoarding.org to find out more about our 18 poster billboards. A wider view again. And then we're looking forward to showing Adi Adesina's work, and he's an environmental artist, sculptor, printmaker, and so there's a kind of strong environmental theme, and his work will begin up from mid-March in Sharing Not Hoarding, but it's keeping going a very strong printmaking theme within the posters that we've been showing there. As a printmaker, I really love that we're able to do that. And then very finally, Susie Rose Dalton is our next artist at Nomas. And weirdly enough, dealing with trauma. And this piece that you can see there is everyone was made during COVID and placed out in the sunshine of the windowsill. So kind of formally and aesthetically a total contrast to Jillian's work. But actually dealing with time, temporality, life and death, significance, meaning making. So we are really excited to be able to show her work, which is heavily informed by her training as an archaeologist and also her PhD, which is studying in Belfast at the moment. So thank you guys for sticking with us and joining us on our talks. You can also join our mailing list and just put your details in privately if you want to Cully on the chat. But we are grateful for your time and attention.